distinct pleasure to actually be able to do this on a Wednesday evening. I haven't had the opportunity to make this happen. I'm really excited that I finally do get to do this. I can't say that I've been to a lot of churches that have done Wednesday night services on an ongoing basis, and to be honest with you, I think it's exciting. It gives the opportunity for people to show up that just don't have time to do it during other times of the week. So, my topic was just something really simple. Mark asked, "What do you want to talk about?" I says, "Well, what have I talked about that I really enjoy talking about? I enjoy talking about faith."
Yes.
So that's why I chose that as a topic, and it's also one that doesn't lack for source material. And, everybody and their brother has an opinion as to what faith is. Well, you're going to get my opinion. Because, like I say, there's a lot of people out there that have different ways of looking at it. I'm going to share with you what's on my heart, what basically it means to me. If it resonates with you, that's wonderful. And if it doesn't, I certainly encourage a vigorous discussion that basically helps both of us understand it better. Because it is one of those key things that when we're talking about a philosophy such as this, religion, one of the key tenets that's always been there, one of the key things that's always been part of all of these movements is that you have to have faith. You have to believe in something. So the question I have is, what do you believe? What do you believe? Because that's really the first question you have to ask to embark on a discussion about what is faith. So, faith is really a connection that we have to Spirit. It's one of those key things that that allows us to feel this energy come through us, because we get a chance to not only believe in something, to understand how the Spirit works, but it also gets a chance to now work inside us. We have the opportunity to act on that belief, see that belief now comes into full demonstration, or at least it starts unfolding in multiple stages of demonstration. It's just one of those things that's wonderful to watch it happen. That's why I like talking about this. Dr. Holmes tells us that the idea that faith is only to do with our religious experience, it's a mistake. Simply because there's a whole lot of different types of faith out there. I mean, I'm going to be talking mostly about the religious and spiritual types of thing, but we have faith in our fellow man. We have faith in our leaders, hopefully. We have the opportunity for us to have faith that this building will continue to thrive and be the shining example of what religious science and science of mind and all that we teach here continues to thrive as it has for the last 60 years, 70 years.
Oh, in Redlands?
In Redlands,
like
yeah.
65 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's been here for a long time. And the thing is it's gone through many changes. I just happen to be one of the latest ones. But the thing is that it's gone through a lot of changes, and it continues to grow. It continues to be wonderfully positioned to serve a community that I think is marvelous. I've always thought that Redlands. I grew up in the community just down the road in Beaumont. I always enjoyed coming here. There was more stuff to do in Redlands. There's more fun things to do here. People were pretty cool too. So I've always enjoyed this, and frankly, I'm excited that I'm finally part of the community, at least in this small way. So, like I say, faith is kind of a diverse subject, but I'm going to talk mostly about spiritual faith. Having faith in Spirit, faith in God, faith in the essence that basically is the creative medium, if you want to use that term. The simplest way to make to miss the mark in talking about religion and things like that is when you basically try to say God is just one thing. Because the reason that God has so many different names, so many different ideas, is that we really don't have the full capacity to embrace all of what God is. So it's whatever our name is fine. And frankly, you talk to our spiritual leaders, you actually just read in the Science of Mind textbook, and you'll see that there's at least 2 or 3 dozen different names used to describe God. And it's just simply because we're still trying to figure God out. After how long we've been around here doing this, we're still trying to figure God out. So, what really is faith? There's a lot of different folks that have this definition. I really like the one that's described in Hebrews, the Hebrews 11:1. When I would teach my credential classes for this, I would say, okay, tell me what this means. And basically, what it says is, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Anyone ever heard that saying before?
Yes.
Yeah. But what does that really mean? And I have people describe it. I says, well, and I have my own take on that because I like to take a look at the words that are involved in it. Because there's really 2 key words in what I've just told you that are so important for you to understand exactly what the Bible is trying to tell you what faith is. The first one is substance. Now, what is the substance in faith? What is it? It's what our thoughts are. We've known from years past that our thoughts contain mass. They're energy packets worth of quantums that basically just that allow the thought to actually have a measurable mass. And because we think so fast and so many times a day, each thought carries that mass. It actually now creates a heft that basically we can actually direct our energy in a particular direction. When you take a look at the quantum theory, they start taking a look at how just our observation of a quantum test will influence its results. So there's obviously something going on there. They haven't figured it out. To be honest with you, even though I have a scientific background, I've stopped caring about that. I just know that it works. And frankly, I know that it works really well, and I can use it. And now I basically get an opportunity to share that. But when we're talking about substance, the substance of things hoped for, we're talking about a body of thought. And the thing is that if you have faith in something, then you are going to be thinking in a certain way, right? Okay, everyone agree with that? That basically says, I believe that this chair that I'm sitting in is going to hang in there for the entire hour I'm here. So you're going to behave in a certain way, and you're going to have a certain thought body that's that way. If you believe that God is this all-empowering external being that is outside of us, then you're going to behave in a certain way. Now, that's not necessarily what I believe, because I believe God is an all-present being. It's certainly outside, but it's also in us. And how God experiences this world is through us. It basically is in us, as us, through us. That's what I see is going on, and I have faith in that. So do you think that my behavior is going to reflect that expression, is that I believe that God is part of who I am and that it's expressing through me? It took me a while to figure that out. Actually, I was in ministerial school and I finally got oh, duh. I mean, that's what this means. That's what I'm looking to see is, how can I figure this thing out? And this is one of the ahas that came to me, is that the substance of things hoped for is that body of thought that you're acting as you believe that God is that full expression of the divine. Now, the second part of that saying is that the evidence of things not seen. Now, I've just talked about what the evidence might just be, because what's evidence? It's something you can be convicted on. Basically, if someone says, do you believe in God? Is there enough evidence to convict you of that? Okay, that's what we're looking for, and the evidence of that is that you behave as if God exists. You recognize that there is love in the world, that there is kindness in the world, that there is a being that's there to actually assist us and is basically flowing in as and through us. That's what my belief is, and that's actually what I find works really, really well for me and the people that I've actually helped through different difficulties. That actually seems to work pretty well, because if we recognize that God is who we are, then that evidence of things not seen is basically you're behaving in such a way that you recognize that the thoughts are moving you in a certain direction. It's the substance of things hoped for. So you basically have a direction, but you're directing this energy in a particular direction. And then the evidence of things not seen, you're behaving that oh, God's going to give this to me. I have a faith that this center will continue to grow and thrive, and that actually there's some very specific things that I would like to see happen. I'd like to see this Friday, this Friday. It's been a long week so far. I'd see this Wednesday evening activity continue to grow and thrive and be a more integral part of the community. I'd like to be able to see that the church in general has continued to grow and thrive, so that we actually have the resources to do more outreach into the community. I'm convinced that there's more that can be done. It's just that as we move forward, we find that there's always somebody that needs to have a little bit of energy, a little bit of substance, a little bit of financial support, a little bit of extra love, and we need to make sure we have all that available. I'm convinced that that's what's there. Dr. Holmes is the spiritual founder of Science of Mind. One of his quotes talks really to this. He says, faith is a mental attitude, but it's so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. Faith is complete when it is both a conscious but also a subjective acceptance. Now, what does that mean? Well, certainly conscious is okay. It says, yeah, I think I believe that this is going on. But what we find is that sometimes this stuff doesn't work for us. And what I've learned is that, unfortunately, we live in a world that doesn't always support our faith. And we've had a lot of doubts that have been thrown in our way. And the thing is that unless we've consciously learned how to deflect them, or transform them, or transmute them into a different energy, then what we need to do is we need to actually actively work on developing our own faith and keep focused on that. The subjective part of this is basically the stuff that's kind of hiding behind the scenes, and a lot of us say it's kind of like the positive mental attitude. They say, gee, that doesn't work. It doesn't work because I was positive about something and I didn't get it. Trouble is that just like faith is basically just for most of us anyway, is this thin little veneer on top of a whole mass of non-belief, of fear, which is actually the opposite of the faith. And the thing is that what we need to do is we need to not just deal with the top layer, what you can see, but there's a whole lot of stuff beneath, and frankly, that's where the spiritual work comes in. That's where you need to keep working on whatever prayer looks like to you, whatever meditation looks like to you, however that your spiritual work transforms you, but you need to work on continuing that process. So Dr. Holmes continues to say on this same quote, it says, faith may be consciously generated. So in spiritual terminology means that faith is a belief in the presence of an invisible principle and law which directly and specifically responds to us. Now that's where the blessing, that's where the grace, that's where the gift is. Because it's already in place. It's already there. Guess what we have to do? We just have to accept it. We just have to say, okay, I believe this. Now, how do I make sure that I am always focused on this? How do I make sure this? How do I allow that to unfold as who I am? Faith is, well, some people try to make it a dogma. And basically, it's just, it has all these rules, and you have to do certain things and things like that. I don't see it that way. It's not a dogma or creed or basically just something all by itself to be worshipped. Basically, it's basically part of any spiritual practice. It's part of any spiritual work that you do. Actually, it's part of just being a human. But again, we're talking mostly about the spiritual aspect of it right now. But having faith is not something that should be foreign to you. But basically, we want it to work better for us. So that's what I'm sharing what I find works better, makes it work better for me. So, how long do I have on this?
You're okay.
Am I doing okay?
Yeah, you're great.
All right. I could go forever on this. I don't make sure. So, just want to make sure I just don't keep running off because I can go off into spiritual oblivion, I guess. But there's a difference in it, and maybe to talk a little bit. We talked about why sometimes this idea doesn't always work for us. Is that so I've had faith in this and it didn't show up for me. The one thing I've always found out, I didn't like it sometimes. I didn't believe it at first sometimes, but Spirit always works. And Dr. Holmes tells us is that if you really haven't done your spiritual work and you say, well, gee, I don't believe that this works. Spirit works. It works by appearing not to work. That's one of the fun sayings about this is that if you don't believe it works that way for you too. If you don't believe that it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread for you, then it won't be. It won't be part of what you want to show up in your life because you don't believe it. And most of the time when we don't have the firm conviction and the idea that growth is going to show up for us, what we take a look at is that we're actually dealing with something called fear. There's something standing in the way of us actually embodying this. And actually part of that mass of stuff that's underneath the surface that we were talking about, there's a lot of fear that's tied up into that. We're afraid that we're not going to be enough. We're afraid that the Spirit won't be there when we really need it. We're going to be afraid that we're going to find out that I've thought about this way for such a long time, and then it wasn't the way I thought it would be. There's a lot of fear that's associated with that. That's something that you have to do spiritual work to get over. I've never found a great way to shortcut that and get from point A to point B. You can get help, and that's what our practitioners do. But the thing is, you still have to do the work. You have to accept that there is a power that's greater, that goes through us and expresses as us, and that is one that we can use. Now, once you really believe that, then you can say, okay, now God, use me and get me past my disbelief. Get me past the steps that are stopping me from really embodying this idea. Embodying my faith and making this thing work for me at its best possible way. So we were talking about this body of thought that comes out, and like I say, it can create a mass of negativity and fear just as easily can create a mass of positivity and growth. And that's kind of what we're looking for you to do, because whatever you really believe in, there's going to be thoughts that are coming out constantly that are supporting what you really believe in. So if it's lack and fear, then you're going to have a whole lot of things coming out in lack and fear. I want to basically start planting the seed that let's take that river and transform it a little bit, and then we transform it a little bit more, and eventually get to the point we can say, hey, I can actually let this thing go. I want to step into a new place. I want to step into on a new path. I want to basically embrace the idea that I am now that spiritual essence willing to work and know that it's who I am. Now there's a term that we use, and Brother Mark, you mentioned this is one of your favorite terms, and I love it. It's actually going to be something we talk about real soon. It's called mental equivalence.
Oh, yeah.
So the body of understanding that you have inside you basically creates a template of what is going to show. Hello.
He agrees.
So it creates a template which what shows up in your life, and because of what shows up in your life is basically what you believe. When you come across that first question that I asked you, what do you believe? What you can do is you can start looking around where what's showing up around you right now, because that's the answer to that question. If it's shown up and it's something that you say, hey, this is great, this is awesome, then you're on the path that you really wanted to choose. This is what I support you 1,000%. But if it happens to not be, the beautiful part about this teaching is that you don't have to be stuck there for the rest of your life. You can say, okay, this is what I was on. I've gotten a really good lesson out of this. This has really taught me what I don't want. And now we can actually do something different. This has really shown me that there is something better. I now can choose that. And that's what the saying that is on the wall, change your thinking, change your life, is that's what that means. Is that change your thinking. Create a new body of thought. And what this mental atmospheres is what they call it, is you basically, you're surrounded by the thoughts that you've created. And it tends to be a magnet that brings stuff to you that kind of reflects what you're thinking. So if you're drawing things into your life that basically are creating shortfalls and hiccups in the relationships or whatever that shows up, then there's an opportunity for you to grow. And I'd love to be able to tell you that the journey has an end. I've yet to meet someone who's really gotten to the end. I've known a lot of people who've gotten way down that road. I've gotten farther in the last several years than I've ever thought I would. But the thing is that the growth is certain if you do the work. Growth is actually not that difficult. You just have to be consistent about it. And that's really what I want you to take a look at, is that, what do you believe? If you looked around and you say, I'm blessed, I see that the God within me is doing everything I want it to do, then great. But if you don't see what you want, then you need to figure out, where do I want to go? And sometimes that's the hard part, is figuring out, okay, I know what I've got is what I don't want, so let's figure out what I need to do. You need these meditations and things that we do, basically, you need to figure out what wants to happen here. Is there something that needs to change? Is there something and sometimes you're confronted so much with something that's blocking you, that's been blocking you for so long, that you're running around trying to figure out how to get out of this situation. And you run forward, you run into a wall. You run backward, you run into a wall. You run to the right, left, and you keep running into walls. And you say, I'm stuck. I can't move. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's no top on that box. And how you get out is through faith. How you get out is through believing something different. And that may not transform you immediately, but frankly, the idea that you now embrace the idea and you are consistent with it and you do the things that are necessary, and then maybe another talk we'll talk about what spiritual work looks like. But the thing is that that's what you're going to actually embrace the divine by doing, is doing it consistently. So maybe I'll just wrap up with this last quote, again by Dr. Holmes. It says, the measure of our faith in the infinite is the measure of our capacity to draw from the infinite. This is why the great teacher said, it is done unto you as you believe. If we can believe in a great good, then much good can come to us. It is according to our mental acceptance or mental equivalence, according to our faith, that life manifests through us. Namaste.
Thank you.